Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in.
I am George Socha, heading up brand awareness at Reveal. This week, we are broadcasting live from Legalweek 2024 in New York City. On each episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live, I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. Our guest for this episode is Doug Kaminski. Doug is Chief Strategic Officer at Purpose Legal. Doug, welcome.
Thank you, George. Thanks for having me.
Always great to have a chance to chat with you.
So I don't know how luminary I am on this last day of Legal Week.
Well, I don't know. You're the sweeper, I guess. Cleaning up at the end. I don't know. But it also means we're at the end of Legal Week.
Correct.
You've had a chance to talk with quite a number of people here and, of course, leading up to this.
Oh, absolutely.
What have you been hearing?
You know, it's been very interesting because the talk is less about Gen AI. I mean, very little about that, and more about what's going on out there in the market, tech-wise especially, starting from legal hold through where are we seeing the tech emerge on the review side and every point in between.
What sort of people have you been talking with the most?
Predominantly corporations. So I've talked with at least 18 corporate legal departments while here. And there's some interesting trends that I've been seeing. One is, of course, the legal hold space. Not plugging Reveal particularly, but I'm a fan of the legal LIGL product that's now Reveal Legal Hold, and heard many good things from a number of folks because they're all looking at that market now.
Well, what are they looking for as they're looking at, and what are they not looking for?
Yes, that's actually a great question. The looking at the legal hold equation, it's not just notification, as you know. Right. Preservation is the other half of that. So they're really looking more holistically at legal hold. More than the notification, can we do preserve in place? Can we index in place? How do we get our hands on that data? And then how do we show chain of custody and control throughout the process that we can document?
All the way through, presumably, a release, disposition, possibly, or returning to retention schedules.
Correct. And actually just keeping it tight, right? We have to have acknowledgments, but beyond that, reminders that you're still on hold. And then, as you said, rightly so, release.
Are there particular challenges they are facing?
Yeah, definitely challenges in partially the feature functionality, because we haven't had to look at legal hold for a while, right? It's just been kind of a given. Yep. And with the two biggest players coming together in the space, having been acquired, it really has caused people to take a look at what's in the market, what truly is our best choice, and having to look at what's in the market saying, can we do this better?
So legal hold, what's next? What else are they
great,
talking about?
You might be familiar with the EDRM. I don't know.
I think I know a little
passing
bit about
familiarity.
It.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So as we go through that, definitely a lot of movement on the collections for mobile devices. Mm-hmm. We've worked with Mode 1, and I know Reveal's been working with Mode 1 as well, doing some very good things on remote targeted collections of mobile device data. Starting to see proactive collection. We have a client that said, hey, we have 75, 80 frequent flyers. We just want to collect their data, preserve that for now, because we know it probably is coming into play, and we want to make sure we get the short message format information correct.
That would suggest that, I would think that means if they're doing that proactively, it's not a one and done.
No, correct. No. Right. So you'll do incremental, which then causes you to look at other technologies to allow you to do that.
Yep. No, so, and I assume it means ideally scheduled, incremental, and You don't want to
It's
say
like you've done this
everything
before.
all the
Yeah.
time, do you?
Yes, you do have to collect the delta, right, on a
Right.
scheduled basis. And a lot of the technologies, particularly those that are indexing in place, are allowing you collect, even in a targeted fashion, the incremental difference.
What sort of challenges are they facing?
Good one. It's I would say more so on the short message format, not from the collection side, though you do have to do that right. It really gets down to how do we represent this in the review platforms, and forcing things into an arbitrary 24-hour slice.
I've never felt that was the
I wouldn't
optimal
advocate
approach.
it. Communications don't happen that way.
No.
And they hop channels. I mean, I was on 7 different applications conversing with people, just with various meetings and updates and so on. So how do you integrate all of those things into a proper communication analysis that doesn't arbitrarily force a 24-hour time slice?
Right, because some communications begin and end in just a few minutes' time,
That is correct.
and others span months
Right.
sometimes.
And how about in between, right?
Right.
You're talking about the substantive things, right? And then we're talking about our dogs, and then we're talking about some more substantive things. How do you produce that? Someone's going to say, you didn't produce the middle of that. Well, we're talking about the dogs. Well, it wasn't relevant.
Right.
So we have to think about things differently. It's about the data and the communications. Don't force it into a document paradigm.
Right. We don't, I mean, it seems to me that we are at a point where we have an opportunity to not recreate some of the problems we've created for ourselves in the past.
That's the perfect statement, because we can't solve today's problems with yesterday's solutions if the game has changed.
Do you see an emerging set of approaches that address those problems?
Definitely have. So there's some very good technologies now that are looking at the indexing differently and the obtaining and the entity extraction. So as you know, one of the problems with SharePoint is 10 people working on a document, who owns it, right? And we have those problems with again, modern attachments, using air quotes again, but the linkages, right? So who is it? And I've seen some good technologies that are divining, in essence, ownership from the usage, and it's not just the last person that touched it. Who is really using it? And that's where AI is starting to come into play, to divine that and to do the entity extraction and the association of the person to the data, so we attribute it correctly.
I mean, I can think of, it's easy to imagine how complicated that is. We, planning for one of our panels, we were working on our PowerPoint presentation.
Right.
I sent everyone a link to the live document.
Right.
We were on a Zoom call. We were all looking at the same thing. I had it up on my screen, but people were in there, each one of them editing the document, all of us on the fly.
Exactly.
Try to figure out who is the author of what, when, and which version you're talking about, when the version is changing almost second by
and the
second.
metadata won't tell you, because Jill could have authored it 5 years ago, so that's meaningless.
Right.
Yeah. So that's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, because what did I start with? I started with the template that was sent to me. So I didn't start with a blank PowerPoint.
And I think the other problem is that when our communications are mixing. So the PowerPoint, it's discrete, we know. Whereas if you have chat data and collaboration platforms that go along with that, now we're back into short message format. And I think, honestly, not to just plug Reveal, but Reveal is further along when it comes to the analysis of short message format data and showing how the communications change in the channel. In fact, I posited that in one of the sessions I did, that our SMF should stand for rich short message format, or even Reveal short message format. But let's just go with rich.
We'll go with rich. I think
because there's so much in that data that's fielded.
There's so much.
There's geolocation data. There's so much more that you can get from this, because ultimately we're trying to tell the story of what's going on in this matter.
And the story goes back almost always to who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Yes, it does.
When often you only know one of those pieces for sure. And excuse me, maybe not even that.
Yeah.
So what else are you hearing from the corporate folk as you move through that diagram?
Well, I'd say concerns over AI. Microsoft Copilot in particular, fantastic product. I got a sneak peek of it in August. by the product owner at Microsoft. We spent hours, but people are concerned about not just the evidentiary issues, but where is this stuff stored? And Microsoft has done a good job saying your data is your data, right? It's not going to be commingled. But what happens with the prompts, which then goes out to the LLM, right? Is your prompt going to be used to train that LLM? And then where is the results of that stored so we can effectuate retention? We can ensure that if we do collect it, we're collecting all those pieces. Or heck, even just transcripting in Teams. I mean, you could do some phenomenal stuff with Copilot, but how do I collect that data? Is it going to be stored? Because Teams stores things in 5 places. So does that create challenges in the future? I think that's what many people are concerned about.
There was recently an article, and I'm sure there have been many. I just happened to notice one of them recently, where the fundamental question was, is this discoverable? And the stuff about people's usage of Gen AI and then the content generated. I thought it was an easy question to answer, but the folks who were interviewed for the article seem to have some disagreement. What are your thoughts on the discoverability?
Yeah, I think you're right. And there's components we're not as familiar with too, such as Loop. And Loop actually is in a place where nobody but Microsoft can get to. And I just learned this in one of my corporate counsel conversations here. And you can opt out of Loop, yet still use Copilot. And so which is the component that's discoverable? We need to look and see, can we get to it?
Isn't there a distinction between what is discoverable and what is accessible?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Inaccessibility does not by itself mean it's not discoverable.
That's correct. You might be able to make an argument for burden or accessibility to potentially obviate the discoverability. But you may have to eventually produce that, particularly if it's relevant to the matter.
And especially if you actually want to use it on your own behalf.
That's correct. Definitely have to think strategically when it comes to the data.
What other concerns are you hearing? Or let's not just talk about concerns, but aspirations are you hearing?
Yeah, so definitely the aspirations are there. Some of it Gen AI, but really getting back to kind of the core and looking at how do we take some of these newer tools and improve our processes and our workflow. Otherwise, if we find things that can give us a few more insights, we're just making the auctioneer speak faster, right? How do we make them speak fewer words? How do we find ways to be able to change our workflows in ways that are far more efficient? And that's, I think, the promise of some of these, including some of the largely all in beta, as you had said so well before, the review applications of AI.
Well, let's focus on that for a moment because there are, it feels like we're back in 2011, 2012, where you were expecting to find tar in a cup of coffee. Now it's Gen AI in a cup of coffee.
Now it's Gen AI, exactly. You almost want to see like one of those cereal box call outs to say, now with AI. I mean, we're all using that, but the reality is it's been around a long time. Machine learning has led into neural networks, has led into where we're at now because we finally evolved enough.
Yeah.
But it's not quite there. Can it make the substantive decisions better than a human who's looked at docs for 12 hours? Possibly.
Well, given that every Gen AI offering here really, I think, is at best a beta.
Yes.
What do you think the possibilities are? Let's assume this stuff gets to a point, which I am sure it will.
Yes.
Where it's working well, it's functional, it's usable, it's what are the possibilities?
Well, the possibilities are there for practitioners who embrace it. Because if you learn how to use this technology to augment your practice and if your practice is largely manual or things that can be automated, you should be pivoting. And my prediction, I'll go on the air to say this, my prediction is Copilot will be the gateway for wide-scale acceptance and usage of Gen AI, much like Office 365 was for cloud. Prior to that, people said, cloud, no way, it's not secure. Office 365 comes in, they're using it for a little bit, and they go, cloud's not so bad. And so with Copilot having Gen AI embedded in M365, I think you'll see that will open the door and pave the way for adoption faster of Gen AI beyond just the hype cycle that we have.
So it was what, 2012 that Judge Peck came out with De Silva Moore that got people focusing on tar. It's 2024 and there's still a lot of people who are skeptical about tar. Are we going to be 2036 going, well, a lot of people still don't use Gen AI?
I don't think so. And the reason is this, is tar was an advancement predominantly for the legal industry. Gen AI is an advancement across industries that is more task oriented. And we're going to find ways that it applies to summarization of facts and timelines and creation of briefs and other things that the sharp legal minds, honestly, we're kind of being wasted on doing, because these are things that kind of should have been automated long ago. And we've tried with macros and other things and knowledge management systems, but reality is it's going to touch a broader spectrum than tar did. So as a result, it'll have more of a push than tar did.
Well, on that upbeat note, it's about time to bring this to a close. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Doug Kaminski is again the Chief Strategic Officer at Purpose Legal. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Doug, as always, thanks so much.
Thanks, George. Safe travels, everyone.
Thank you.